The anime starts with the teacher of a classroom shaking. A student asks to go to the infirmary because she wasn't feeling well, and when the teacher looks at the students he sees that everyone was also shaking, everyone except the protagonist Baki, who was sleeping with his eyes open. He wakes up and the scene cuts to him being cornered by 3 delinquents on the way out of the school. They wanted to fight with Baki for some reason, but they were also shaking. One of them teases the other asking if he was scared, but the chubby one in the group interrupts them and says not to mess with him. Baki then says that since they're not going to do anything he leaves, and while he was leaving, the chubby one in the middle of the shivering looking like he had diarrhea asks what he is. He replies that he's just an ordinary guy. Probably just his presence made everyone tremble. The scene cuts to a limousine arriving at school and a shaft comes out of. His name is Saibatsu Tokugawa, a rich vein that dominates all the businesses of the country. He talks to Baki in the director's office and puts something strange on the table, saying that this is glycerin, and warns Baki that if he ate it he would explode inside. He explains that in the past it was not possible to store glycerin that way, and tells about a vessel that after surviving a storm it arrived at its destination, and when they went to check the cargo they found crystallized glycerin in perfect condition. Something impossible. The time after that all the glycerin in the world began to crystallize too, and a phenomenon called synchronicity happened. Living beings, material, and even things that had no relation to each other changed at the same time in the whole world. And before finishing the conversation the old man says that powerful and troubled men are coming to Tokyo. The scene cuts to a maximum security prison with a prisoner being taken to his execution. He would be killed by hanging, and after climbing on platform he speaks his last words and is hanged. After that they call a doctor to check if he was really dead, and when the doctor checks his heartbeat he finds that he still was alive. He gets up killing 2 guards and finishes killing everyone there. When other guards enter the room they see everyone dead and the word Tokyo written on the wall. Another prisoner is shown in the same situation as the other, that is, in his exercise. This one was getting shocked, but unfortunately the police turned it off too soon and didn't kill him, making him break free and kill everyone there, except a random petticoat that he left alive. I don't know why. The anime shows him taking a flight and going to Tokyo. Now we are going to the other side of the world in Russia. In the same way a prisoner escaped from prison. A hero from Russia was sent to stop him but is found dead by the guards a while later. This prisoner was also heading towards to Japan. The scene cuts showing an inspector going to ask questions to a prisoner. He was calm, saying that he was a black belt in karate and that he didn't need to worry, but when the policeman shows the photo of the last inspector who was there for him, he becomes shits on time and does everything the police say, including taking his belongings that could be used by the prisoner named Speck. When the inspector goes to see him he notices that Speck was no longer there and is killed shortly after that by Speck, who had entered a duck. He takes a gold tooth from the inspector and uses it to leave the prison that was in a submarine 200 meters underwater. Even so he manages to swim to the surface and escape. The scene cuts with him saying that was going to Tokyo. The last prisoner was a short guy of 1 meter and 60 who was locked in a glass cube that can withstand even bazooka shots, but even so manages to break the glass and escape. And like the other 4 he also left a message saying he was going to Tokyo. The old man tells Baki that this is the phenomenon of synchronicity, since 5 different prisoners with no connection at all escaped from prison and are destined for Tokyo. In addition they said the same phrase as the last words, "I want to meet the defeat." Cam then says that these people were related and asks Baki if he knew anything. Baki says that this is knowledge and that they wanted, I don't know, just to know the defeat or something. But wait. It wasn't exactly this phrase they said. There's something strange there, man. Mystery peaks Scooby-Doo. The guy insists, saying that it's not known and that they were after Baki. We see that there really were people after Baki when several dangerous men go looking for those 3 delinquents from the beginning of the anime, asking to take Baki to them. He calls Baki for a conversation behind the school and asks him to follow him. Baki agrees and is taken to where these guys were. One of them decides to pull a knife and go for Baki, but just by feeling his presence he shits himself at the time and gives up attacking. Another one attacks Baki with his gun, but he holds it easily. He says he's going to play with them a little and defeats them all with ease while playing with them. This delinquent who took Baki there pulls a gun on him, but he doesn't see one of the 5 criminals who escaped after him. Speck. Baki makes a face of fear, and it doesn't take long for this delinquent to realize that the fear is not his but the guy 3 meters behind him. He gently asks him to hand over his gun to him and he does. After that he said he received information that the strongest man lived in Tokyo and had only 17 years old, referring to Baki. He extends his hand wanting to shake Baki's, and when he shakes it he realizes that it was a cut hand. He then brings the bludgeon down on Baki and leaves him on the ground. For some reason Baki does not react and gets up soon after. Spec then said that this was all just a presentation and asks for a handshake again. Baki shakes it and this time everything is fine, with the exception of the kick he takes right after. A retelling about this is made, and who was watching this was Baki's father, Yuujirou Hanma, who is known as the strongest guy in the world, capable of destroying entire armies with just his hands. The scene cuts showing two people talking. One of them was a guy called Shibuko, creator of his own jiu-jitsu technique and able to take down opponents much bigger than him. The other guy was someone who defeated him in the past. Shibukawa challenges him to a fight, but this guy throws a hot kettle at him and surrenders, defeating him again. The scene cuts to Spec being arrested again. He says he is comfortable in this prison, but he gets hungry so he runs away to buy food. He appears again in a bathroom pissing next to a police captain who is a master of judo. He offers a cookie to the captain who tries to attack him but obviously doesn't do any damage. The anime doesn't show it but he probably died. After that we follow the fight between two martial arts masters, the son of Doppo Orochi, who was a great master of combat karate, and Retsukaiu, a master who is said to be the best in the Chinese martial arts and nearly defeated Baki in a tournament in the past. The two fight in a battle where the two see a 3D puppet looking like it came out of a Play 1 game, and after the fight one of the 5 prisoners named Dorian appears there looking for Doppo Orochi. His son tells him to take off his shoes first and he does, only to throw it at him and hit him with a blow. He even pokes his eyes out with his finger and chokes him with his black karate belt. He retaliates with a kick and then some blows but ends up dying soon after. His partner Retsukaiu says that he would pay for having done that, and after exchanging some blows Dorian assumes that he is the teacher of that dojo and says that fighting in enemy territory is not smart, leaving soon after. I'm talking very formal today. I look like a teacher. The scene cuts with Baki in physical education class. He was so strong but so strong that he couldn't do any sport properly. In that sport of jumping as far as possible he jumped so high that he passed the mark. On the horizontal bar he climbed so fast and with so much force that the bar came loose making him fly, and so on. The teacher complains to him saying that he couldn't do any exercises and that he would fail him. Lo, if it continued like this. He then asks the teacher what was the world record for the 1500 meters race and his teacher says it was 3:26 seconds. Baki then launches a challenge. If he managed to break the record the teacher would have to approve it. He got top marks in his subject, but the teacher says he would pass him not only in his subject but in all subjects with top marks. During the course he was going super fast, at world record level, but at a certain point he started to get tired. Why? He never trained to run faster and ended up arriving last at the finish line. Even so his teacher approves of him. The scene cuts showing the vein of the beginning of the anime having dinner with a very angry judo athlete who said he had come to Japan to win more fame and therefore money. But one of the 5 prisoners named Sikorsky attacks him by surprise and cuts his face, saying that a true warrior needs to be prepared for surprise fights and not only when he is called. After that the vein takes this guy to a strange arena. Right after the other prisoners start to arrive. He didn't invite them with the exception of Sikorsky, but even so, everyone was attracted to that place. The vein then asks why everyone came to this arena and each one gives a different answer. He then says that there was a little present for all of them. The defeat and Baki appears there at that moment, but not only him but also Doppo Orochi and his men. The vein explains that a little while ago there was a tournament with 38 fighters there, which according to him maybe it was the biggest martial arts tournament in the world and the winner of that tournament was Baki. The 5 stare at him and continuing to talk. The vein says that since the 5 so wanting to know defeat, the men who were there would be more than able to do that, and he gives the idea of having a fight between them. He was going to define the rules, but one of those who were with Doppo, which is Shibukawa, says that there are no rules. They will fight anytime, anywhere, and wear whatever they want, no rule. Baki says he was leaving because he had to wake up early for class the next day. The scene cuts with Sikorsky leaving and thinking which of the 5 he would fight. Doppo was going with him to Dorian. On the way they find Retsukaiu, who was crazy to fight with Dorian. Doppo then starts the fight by giving a backpack followed by a kick to Dorian. He falls to his knees but uses an attack that sets fire to him. It's not very useful actually because it neutralizes fire easily, but your hand is cut by an ultra-sharp wire that Dorian was hiding. He gives a giant science lesson explaining how this wire works that I won't explain here either. Screwing. After all, whoever is watching Baki wants to be beaten and not something else. and Doppo, in addition to being able to stop the wound just by applying pressure to the place, still punches him in the face with his arm cut off. After that he runs away and the scene cuts with the Sikorsky who let himself be captured by that guy who was beaten by him earlier. He points his gun at him and shoots him, but he was wearing a bulletproof vest under his shirt and he gets up giving his two henchmen a stick, besides to kill him at the end of court. The scene cuts to Baki on a date. He and the girl are assaulted by some henchmen, but just by looking at Baki they shit themselves with fear and let them pass. They spend the day doing things together and having fun until the night comes and they finally hold hands. So far so good, all very cute with the exception of Spec standing behind them giving a weird smile. The scene cuts continuing the conversation between the two. She remembers the time when the tournament that Baki won took place where, in the hallway just before his fight, he kissed her. She comments to him about him saying nice phrases to her before the kiss and asks if all that was just to kiss her. He replies no and that besides his mother she is the first woman he could open up to. After that he kisses her again and right at that time Spec appears in front of him with a face that he smoked 5 kilograms of rotten weed. But he is intimidated by Baki's dangerous look and in a moment of desperation he tries to attack him but is prevented by one of the guys who were with Doppo before called Kaoru, who takes him by the neck and takes him away. They have a brief conversation and Spec starts the fight by kicking him in the face. He doesn't react at the time. He just rips his clothes off revealing a very angry tattoo that covers his entire back. This tattoo shows that he is the leader of the Hanayama clan, a Yakuza family that deals with betting. The one who becomes leader always has this tattoo on his back and the anime tells a brief story of this tattoo. The battle continues with Kaoru taking a stick from Spec. He takes a bench in the square and hits Kaoru with everything. At that moment he gets up and Spec says that he finally wants to fight seriously and the two assume the same fighting posture. He says he heard about a fighter of karate in Japan known as Holy Hand, referring to Kaoru, but he says that it was no big deal because he had already shot down a real saint. This saint was the Statue of Liberty there in the United States that just started to crack and almost broke because of the punches he threw at her, being prevented from breaking by the government that came to do the repair. Back in the fight, Spec uses his strongest attack which he calls apnea sprint, where he strikes at high speed for 5 minutes followed without needing to breathe and not giving any gap to any of Kaoru's counterattacks. Or is it possible? He takes another punch right in the face. The fight continues with him being beaten without being able to do anything against Kaoru, until he surrenders and asks to stop the fight. However he manages to put ammunition in Kaoru's mouth and make him chew what makes them explode in his mouth. But that doesn't stop. He punches Spec so hard that he makes him fly and hit a pole, being electrocuted at the time. The scene cuts with Kaoru taking the supposedly dead Spec to the police. He hands him over to the police and the police arrange a car for him. When he gets into that car however Spec appears behind the car lifting him with Kaoru inside and turning the car around. When Kaoru tries to get out Spec hits him with a foot goat and still shoots him when he tries to fight back, leaving him all screwed on the ground. However as Kaoru was not a normal guy, before being finished with a shot in the mouth he makes the bullet pass through the hole in his mouth and pulls Spec's foot knocking him down. He starts to punch him madly but Spec finds a way to use a light grenade against Kaoru that blinds him and makes him miss his punch. At that moment Spec applies a rear naked choke on him with a perfect technique that had no escape, at least, not for an ordinary person, because Kaoru escapes at the base of strength, tearing off a part of Spec's arm and thigh, and when he lets go of it, Spec's throat becomes the next target. The fight ends with Spec lying on the ground and Kaoru coming out victorious. The scene cuts to Spec in the hospital all skinny. The doctors were surprised to learn that Spec was over 90 years old and after an explanation about how he got like that the doctors reveal that what kept him alive and healthy was his will to be defeated. That was his reason for living and after being defeated he lost that reason since he got what he wanted, thus becoming skinny and looking worthy of 90 years. The episode ends with Baki at school. He wasn't paying attention in class and his teacher noticing this explains that man doesn't only live on strength. The brain is also important. As an example he says that it doesn't matter how fast someone runs. No one could jump from the ground to the second floor of the school but that's exactly what happens when one of the 5 prisoners named Doyle jumps into Baki's room which is on the second floor. He hits his teacher and makes Baki very angry attacking him right away then. And so begins the Baki vs Doyle fight. Who will win? You'll only know by watching part 2 of this video. Leave a like and comment that you want part 2 so I know it's worth continuing this story.